Now, hey everybody, it's Friday. It's me, Ethan, at the bottom here. And all the way up the top of the Brady Bunch here, we've got Roop from Cobra X. Um, Hope everybody's doing good. I've got a lot of information, just a profound amount of information to impart with all of you guys. So please bear with me. I know there's probably going to be a lot of questions. I will do my best to stay active in the Discord and our chat groups to continue to answer any questions that you guys have. Hopefully, my coverage of everything will be comprehensive enough that you guys will have a really good understanding. There won't be too many questions, but as one of the members pointed out, sometimes when you're new in something, you don't even really know if you're asking a good question or not. I'm going to leave resources with the YouTube video. I'm going to leave links so you guys can click on those links, do your own reading, kind of do your own deep dive in gathering information and understanding what's going on. The first thing that I want to do is I want to talk about Bitcoin. Uh, Roop, what are your thoughts of Bitcoin and it doing this amazing dip?
It's perfect, man. It's perfect.
I
It's
agree
it
with
was
you.
kind of expected because it went too fast, too high. From 15K to 75K, too fast.
Well, it did
So
do a phenomenal like 7 months really without a
yeah,
correction, and something like that is just not really sustainable. Ideally, the way you want to see Bitcoin trend up is you want to see it do like a 3 or 4 month run and then 1 month bad, and then another 3 or 4 month run, 1 month bad. But
yeah,
you can see that I drew some kind of bottom lines here when the correction started, and I mean we touched perfect, like exactly on the line. And I love it when I can nail corrections to that degree. We're not done with the correction. I'm hearing 47 in my circles. I haven't done the technical analysis yet to see if we'll get there, but if we take, so we have upward trends and we have downward trends, right? And so what I do is I will take these angles of these trends and I'll determine what I call velocity, right? And that's just basically the angle, how sharp or flat the angle is of the line. And so I took this is kind of my average line, and I'm kind of predicting we're going to bottom out. I think, and I mentioned this too to you guys, somewhere towards the end of July. And then we're going to begin an upward trend and we're going to break a new all time high. And what I'm predicting, end of August, it may go into early September. Okay, Max is saying he's just here to listen. That's fine. Again, that's why we record these so you guys can kind of look at them and review them later on in your own free time. But it's great that everybody, just even if you're just listening, I'm grateful that you guys are here. Grateful that you guys are paying attention and learning, because that's kind of the fun part about this industry, is that I get to teach you guys about all these things. And so with the price correction and the halvening, that means Bitcoin is not as profitable to mine with, and that only people with super cheap power are going to be able to continue to mine. And what happens when less people mine is we see the difficulty change. And I'm going to go ahead and switch to this. And if we look at the Bitcoin difficulty chart, we can see that we are getting a correction in difficulty. The difficulty is dropping. It had an all-time high of 88T, which is, I think T represents trillion in the difficulty of the math problem. And it has dropped significantly since then. It has gone to 79 and a half T. But here's what's really cool is that it's predicted, if we scroll down here, we're going to drop to 69.73 T. So we're not even close. And you've got to understand the way that the difficulty is corrected. It's a lagging indicator, meaning that, oh my goodness, there's a huge cat fight going on outside. I can hear
Mm.
the cats like screaming at the top of their lungs. But it's a lagging indicator, meaning that like even if a bunch of people were to plug in right now, until the next difficulty adjustment, which would be on the 21st of July, is what it's saying here. Again, it's determined not by time, but how many blocks are processed. But even though it would adjust down lower, if more people plugged in, that means that they would get more rewards, even though the network difficulty should be higher. Okay, thanks, Max, for letting me know. Right now, the average block time is 11 minutes and 40 seconds, and the algorithm is designed to keep the block solve time to 10 minutes. And so you can see we're drifting out of that 10-minute window. And so definitely a lowering of difficulty because there's less hash rate in the network is a necessary thing. But typically what will happen is it'll lower it really low, and then people will plug in because it becomes more profitable. They get more rewards because they get more block solves. But there's like a window in there of like maybe 1 or 2 months before it kind of equalizes back out, and you really get an advantage of that. Does anybody have any questions about the difficulty and how that works and anything like that? I mean, it's pretty straightforward and simple for me because I've been dealing with it for so long. But if any of you guys have any questions or anything, feel free to let me know. All right, no questions.
Everything's clear.
No messages. Okay, that's good. You guys have done your own homework. So I'm going to take it a step further here. And I've got a calculator that I built on my website. Yeah, it is important to understand that there's a big lag between the difficulty correction and the actual hash rate, because the hash rate, it happens live, so it improves in real time. As we fired up the Monopoly site, we increased the network hash rate, but that didn't get factored in the difficulty until the next cycle of the difficulty. It does it every, let me see, it says precisely here. It says it does it every 1,968 blocks. So if we'd plugged in right at the beginning after a difficulty adjustment, we would have 1,968 block solves before our additional hash would be factored into the difficulty. So let's kind of go on to this really cool calculator that I made. Now, originally this was made to compare different hosting types. We were thinking about doing a profit-sharing hosting model where we would split some of the crypto that was generated in our mining operations. And so that was kind of the origins of this calculator. But it's really turned out to be useful in a lot of other things. Like if you want to see what price Bitcoin has to be at a certain power rate to go upside down and become negative, this is an awesome tool to be able to see that and do that in real time. And right now, let's see, what is Bitcoin at currently right now? Let me just check real quick here. It's at 56,400. So if I slide this little slider, and what's really cool is you can just slide this slider here, and you can see things like update in real time, that was one of my design elements that I incorporated in. So you can either love it or you can hate it. But we can see that even with the most efficient units out there, and I've kind of fiddled with the efficiency here on these S19 XPs because we don't have an updated list of all the newest gear that's out and the newest efficiency. I need to go in and change that. But we can see that even at a nominal rate of 5 cents, oh, that doesn't look right. Yeah, 5.8 cents, which I would consider like dead middle of the road. Actually, that would be a good rate. 7.5 cents is like the average now. But with the most efficient gear on the market at 7.5 cents all in, they are not profitable. You can see it kind of grade over, and that means it's not profitable. They're in the negative. They would be negative $2,456. If they went to 5.5 cents, we'll just change this to 5.5, they would be making a very small profit on the most efficient generation equipment that's out there. They'd be making about $13,000 per megawatt per month and have a power cost of $43,335, which is, could you imagine having a $43,000 power bill? I can't. That sounds awful to me. But you can see at the power rates that we work with, if you look at 3 0.8 cents, 2.8 cents, 1.8 cents. You can see that, especially at 1.8 cents, your cost to generate a single Bitcoin. And there's a reason why I fidgeted these numbers the way I did. You can see it makes 0.9999 Bitcoin, basically exactly one Bitcoin. So I wanted to determine, or you guys to actually see the true cost of a Bitcoin when you're just using the electricity cost. That's your production to produce a Bitcoin. So at 1.8 cents all in, you're looking at $14,000. At 5.5 cents, you're looking at $43,000. If you bump that to 6 cents, you're looking at $47,000. And as you guys can see, like your power rate becomes a crucial factor in your ability to continue mining and to be profitable with mining. So even if you have the most efficient gear on the planet, the most efficient miners on the planet, and you're running at 6 cents a kilowatt hour, which is considered, to be very middle of the road. It's not good, but it's not bad. You can see you're making very, very little profit. And if the price of Bitcoin goes down, substantially from that point, if it goes down to, let's say, 48, 47, boom, at 6 cents, you're not making money. So let's look at what the big guys are doing, like the marathons and, all these publicly, the Riot, Core Scientific. If you look at their cost per Bitcoin, they are in, I'm going to say, between the 4.5 cent range and the 5 cent range. But we'll just go with 4.5 cents. So you can see, even with the latest generation gear, but obviously they've already spent hundreds of millions of dollars on the old generation gear. And this was done, 3 years ago. And so they're definitely not profitable right now. They've got their orders in for the latest generation gear, but you've only got so much capital to cycle around. And right now, if you look at the last bull run gear, which is the S19, the S19 Pro, you can see that none of those are profitable, or they're just barely breaking even. So I do expect a huge drop in difficulty coming in this next adjustment cycle, because they've got to unplug all that. I also see the prices of miners being just driven into the dirt, because there's going to be a flood of all these older generation S19 series miners being put on the market. They're going to try to liquidate out. What does this mean fundamentally for the industry? Because if everybody's power cost, let's say you've got a good power cost at 6 cents, are you going to want to buy an S19 series miner at today's Bitcoin price? You're not going to make any money. You're not even going to break even, right? So that's going to cause the price of miners to drive down lower and lower and lower and lower. What that means for us is opportunity, right? And the opportunity that we have is that we have exceptionally low power costs. But there's a problem with that. And the problem with that is, and I'm going to just jump right into this and rip off the Band-Aid. At the end of May, the UAE Agricultural Authority released a press release saying that they don't like the use of the agricultural rate electricity on the agricultural farms. And that's what we're using, folks. That's essentially what we're using. We're using the agricultural rate to have exceptionally cheap power and to maximize our profitability in getting crypto and getting crypto rewards. And you guys have even noticed, when the halvening happened, it kind of hurt everybody, right? It used to be when the power bill would come in, the funds were already in the wallet and I could just pull out what the power bill cost was and everything was good. Now, when the power bill comes in, I actually have to wait like a few more days, sometimes even 4 or 5 days. And then there's enough earnings in the wallet to pay for the power cost. And that's at an exceptionally low rate. You guys have known about my struggles and everything that I've been doing with Cobra X, trying to get power. And after this big press release, a few things have happened. One is one of our farms was fined 10,000 dirhams. Not a big deal, guys. I went ahead and paid it. I didn't even let you guys know about it because I didn't really know the the impact that this was going to have. I didn't want to have a panic reaction or anything like that. The other mining farm that we have, it got fined 7,500 dirhams. All in all together, 17,500 is 4,700 bucks, which is significant, but compared to all the earnings that we've done in our operations, and I've always set aside 10% and things like that for maintenance, rainy days, whatever might come our way, it's covered. So it didn't come out of any of your earnings or anything like that. It came out of our savings that we cleverly put aside in our management. But I've been talking with all the landowners. Well, I've been covering a lot of things more than the fines. I just don't like to trouble you guys with all the details. One of our farms has very brackish water, extreme amounts of salt. It's saltier than the ocean and the sea. And so I had to get a reverse osmosis filtration system installed on that site to try to purify the water, remove some of the salt, because it was just clogging up the cooling screens, the cooling curtains, I should say. And but anyway, that's neither here nor there. The basic consensus that I want to let you guys know is nobody wants to do anything that's going to cause trouble, that's going to cause headaches. And I've been talking at length with the landowners. What can we do? Can we, secretly upgrade? Can we hide our operations? And I don't know if I told you guys, did I tell you guys about the 5 brothers? Have I mentioned the 5 brothers or anything like that? I know, Rope, you probably know a bit about that.
Yeah.
In any case, when I started growing operations over here, there were 5 prominent landowners. We'll call them real estate speculators because they live in Dubai, but they have land all throughout the UAE and Abu Dhabi and things like that. And they acquired a large percentage of all of these agricultural plots. And they did this a long time ago, back in the 90s. Actually, it may not have been them. It may have been their fathers that did it. But in any case, they own a large percentage of all these plots, and they've come, they've tapped on my shoulder. They were like, how can we build? How can we scale? And we've been talking about it at length. Roop's site, the Cobra X site, is a site that I leased from the youngest brother, and his name is Nabil. The oldest brother, Abdullah, wanted to go into a business partner with me, but when he discovered how hands-on mining is, he was like, this is more of a young man's thing, so he politely bowed out. But they're all nice guys. It's a really nice family. I've been meeting with them quite frequently. And what I came to learn is that the youngest brother, Nabil, he and I have become very good friends, and we're talking very frequently, is that he works for Dewa. And I'll just kind of break that down. What is Dewa? So in the UAE, you have 7 emirates, 7 separate kingdoms. And think of them more as, instead of like a state in the US states, they're more like counties, because the UAE is actually very small. From end to end, I can drive it in about 6.5, maybe 7.5 hours. And that's, from one, the kingdom number 1 all the way to kingdom number 7. But in any case, AADC supplies the power for Abu Dhabi. And DEWA, Dubai Energy Water Authority, supplies the energy and the water for Dubai. And each emirate is kind of its own separate county, if you will, its own separate kingdom. Maybe it's better to even think of it as like a state in the US, because states have very different laws between the different states. Even though there is a federal law between the United Emirates, each individual emirates also kind of has its own sub-classification laws. And that's where this agricultural food and safety department is coming in. And basically what they're saying is mining is not an approved activity that's allowed on these agricultural plots. And if you continue to do it, we'll continue to give you fines. As I said, they've already kind of issued the first fines out. And speaking with the youngest brother, Nabil, talking about these things, he explained to me that he's worked for DEWA for 29 years, and he spearheaded the Dubai solar project. And another thing that I learned too is that The AADC power grid and the Dubai power grid are independent. They're not connected with each other. I always thought that the Abu Dhabi government that owns Tranco owned like all the major distribution power lines, and then each Emirates kind of just made their own little sub power companies and they bought off this main feed. But what I learned is that they're actually independent grids, which is good news to me because that means that we can do independent projects. We're not always dependent on, this federal level Tranco situation. So what exciting information did Nabil give me about the solar project? He told me about the Dubai solar project and how he was spearheading this project. And he told me how it all worked because I didn't really understand. First of all, I never considered solar energy. I never even considered it a possibility, right? Because it's too expensive. Like literally 5 years ago, to get a megawatt of solar energy would cost you well over $1 million just in the infrastructure itself. But what I've come to learn, and we'll skip ahead here, you guys may be familiar with this picture. You might remember the early monopoly days. I said in Abu Dhabi, they have this huge solar farm, and then around this solar farm are all of these agricultural plots, and that's how they get the agricultural rate so low. And that's still true, but they basically just decided, we don't like you playing with our power. Like kind of go over to your friend's house and you start playing their, PlayStation 5 or whatever, and then your friend just all of a sudden says, look, I don't want you playing my PlayStation 5 anymore. And it's kind of a situation like that. If you look at this solar power array, and then we're going to just drift up here. Well, first of all, I want to show you guys also, like I do have several farms in several different locations. So, these are some of the operations that I have, and they're scattered out mainly in this area. And they've all gotten fines, not just our operation. But if we scroll up here and we look at the top, you can't really see it clearly in the video. You can see down here on the bottom, this was a 1.3 megawatt installation. But if we look up here in Dubai, we can see they have a project that looks at least 3 or 4 times bigger. It's absolutely massive. If I zoom in on here, look at all these solar panels. I mean, just gajillions and gajillions and gajillions of solar panels. And what Nabil explained to me is that the government will put out a bid with a manufacturer, and they'll say, whoever has the best price or the best delivery time, or, there's a number of factors to making this and creating this solar park. But essentially, the manufacturer brings all of the materials over. They bring all the solar panels, the batteries, all those things over. They design it all out. They install it. And then DEWA, the Dubai Energy Water Authority, buys the power it produces at them for a fixed rate over a fixed amount of time. And doing a bit of research, and you can see this place is just massive. I mean, just massive amounts of solar panels. They even have multiple different solar projects. I don't know if you guys have ever seen a solar tower where they have all the mirrors that reflect up in the tower, but that's what this is. We'll let that kind of zone out. Yeah, look at all those mirrors. You don't want to be a bird flying around this tower. It would cook you immediately. And then
That's a big one.
Yeah, and even more solar panels off to the side. I'll try to send you guys the Google Maps. Here's what's also really cool is my villa where I live. See this little heart up here? It's even closer to where I live, this solar park. What Nabil had suggested to me is that the price of everything had come down so low that we can contract with the same manufacturers involved with the Dubai Solar Park project. And his brothers and his family own many, many lands, and we can just have them install solar operations on their lands and create our own private grid. And we can do this, and they can sell us the production of these solar panels at a very low power cost. Now, he told me, and I don't know if maybe, I think what he was doing is maybe he was cost averaging over all of the projects. He told me that they're paying 2.8 cents for all the solar power that's generated from the solar project that they have going on here. Now that could be very true because when I looked on their webpage, and again, I'll share with you guys the links, you can see that they had many different phases, like phase one, and like I think originally their power was like 7 cents all in. That's what they contracted to do. And then they had phase three. But if you look at phase four or phase five, that's when they start bragging. And they say Dewa achieved a world record, receiving the lowest bid of 1.6953 cents per kilowatt hour. So on the current phases, the price of the technology and the efficiency of the technology has improved so much in such a short time that they literally went from paying like 7 cents a kilowatt hour. And the wiki says a bit more about this. And I want you guys to kind of do your own research as well, because it'll be great to have a dialogue about this. But the wiki says, okay, yeah. So 5.89 cents is what they were paying in phase two. I believe the first phase was something like 7 cents or something. But then they reduced it to 5.89 cents. And if we go all the way to phase five, which they're currently in, you can see it's at like 1.6 cents, 1.68 cents, something like that. When the cost per kilowatt hour gets to these levels, guys, that's game changing. And I still couldn't wrap my head around how is solar so cheap now? Like, how is that even possible for solar to get that cheap? And I went on to Alibaba and I just did a cursory search of everything on Alibaba, all the, like pre-built solar farms and stuff. And indeed, the cost has gone down that much. The performance has gone up that much and the cost has dropped that much over just the last 3 years. Like, there's just been some phenomenal breakthroughs, and it just kind of blew my mind. In my entire industry, I don't know if anybody knows about this. I don't know if anybody's even considering it's possible, right? One of my really, really good clients, John Belazari, and you guys might know him from the Crypto Mining Tools podcast I did with Sakib like 4 or 5 years ago. Who is John Belazari? You guys might not know. John Belazari is the CEO of Soluna. And Soluna is a crypto mining company almost on the same level of Marathon and Core Scientific. They're not public, they're private, but they have many, many large operations. And their business model is about harvesting or load shedding green and renewable energies. So they go on to farms like wind farms. They don't have any solar operations. They have lots of hydro operations. They have lots of wind farm operations. And what happens when you produce these green renewable energies is you've got two things fighting against each other, right? So one is the grid demand. And let's say, for example, during the day when everybody's air conditioner is on full blast trying to stay cool, there's a lot more need for energy, right, than at night when, it's cooler and the air conditioners don't have to work so hard. And so what happens is the grid itself, it's kind of a living thing that ebbs and flows. The problem with that is green energy is, especially wind energy, it's not very predictable, right? So you can go in areas that have consistent wind, but you can't consistently predict how fast the wind will be or whether or not it'll generate enough. And so oftentimes these farms, these wind farms, are over-engineered to produce way more energy that's needed to kind of make up for the dips and valleys that happen in the ebb and flow of the need of energy. And so what his company does is it does what's called load shedding. So when the farm is producing too much energy, instead of having to turn some of these wind turbines off or shut them down, his crypto mining operations can go ahead and suck all that extra energy up. And so the more stable they run these generators and things like that, the longer they last and the better they operate. And so it's only when you kind of have to slow things down and start things back up and slow things down and start things back up, kind of like your car, right? If you drive a car in the city and you do stop and go, stop and go, stop and go traffic, it does much more wear and tear on your vehicle than if you just do, long distance driving with it. It's very similar in the grid. And this even happens on nuclear sites, it happens on hydro sites and things like that. And so what Solona's claim to fame is they harvest this extra energy or this excess energy. They help shed that additional load off. The problem with that is that, you know, they have to curtail, meaning like when the grid needs the energy, they have to shut down their operations. And then when the grid doesn't need the extra energy, then they have to fire everything up. I think it's a great idea. I love the idea that they're going green. But as far as I know, they don't have a solar operation. They're not running off of a solar operation. The problem with solar in North America is that we don't get enough consistent sunlight. Right? So, you know, in North America, you can even be in a very sunny place, but you can still have periods out of the year where maybe 1 month or even a month and a half, it's overcast. So your solar panels aren't going to get efficient production in that environment. One thing that the UAE and Dubai has an abundance of is sunshine. And it's consistent all year round. It ranges between like 11 and a half, 12 hours to 14 hours. So whether it's summer or winter time, it gets a very consistent amount of sunshine. And even when we have these horrible rainstorms, you know, they're in and out within a day. And so fundamentally, what does that mean to do your own private grid, to build your own private grid here? Well, one, we know we can get the manufacturer to build it, and we just pay a nominal low power rate to the manufacturer. So far, the record is 1.6 with Dewa, and that was, you know, contracted maybe 2 years ago, 3 years ago. So there's no telling, you know, what we can do now with the latest and greatest technologies. But that's not exactly what I want to do. I don't want to have the manufacturer build everything out 100%. And then, you know, we just pay, you know, for 20 years or 30 years or whatever with the manufacturer. What I'd rather do is do a situation, and what my clients are interested in doing is where they pay. They pay for the infrastructure to get built out. And so they can get it even lower. Like basically they're amortizing their infrastructure cost over their power usage over time. Bottom line is, guys, from talking with the landowners, what's going on with the agricultural department, I don't see things getting easier to continue operations on these agricultural plots. And so I'm working with these landowners to build our own private grid. We won't be beholden to municipalities. We won't be beholden to power companies. We will be our own private grid. And I'm working strategically with my clients and my relationships in the industry to get them on board. And what does it look like to build a solar grid, right? Do you guys know much about it? I've done quite a bit of research on it. I mean, obviously, as we know, the sun doesn't shine 24 hours a day. So the solar panels themselves are not going to produce energy during the nighttime. So how do we keep operating 24 hours a day, 7 days a week? How do we keep operating even if we have 1 or 2 days of inclement weather? We use batteries. We use massive, huge, shipping container sized batteries. And the cost of these batteries are so cheap now that it just makes sense. Guys, as far as I know, we will be the first large-scale private grid solar farm system, mining system in the world. Nobody has done it. And a lot of people haven't done it because they don't know the current pricing is so cheap for all the solar infrastructure. And B, they don't know of an ideal location in the world and have access to a lot of land that they can implement a solar farm in. But we've got those things covered. And Nabil, thank goodness, thank our lucky stars that I met him and that he has been so responsive in addressing, you know, what my power needs are and coming up with a solution. And that, you know, he spearheaded this project for DEWA, for the Dubai Energy and Water Authority. And he told me about it because I would have never considered it. I would have never thought of this as a possibility. But look, guys, I mean, the numbers are right there. 29,000 for, you know, 1 megawatt to 5 megawatt hours of energy storage. And I've looked it all up. The price per watt with panels is like crazy stupid low. It's like you can get it as low as 10 cents a watt from the panels. The battery storage and the inverter systems are like very, like, I don't, honestly, once the industry figures this out, it's going to be a mad dash. And we're going to be the first ones there. I'm going to do everything I can do to create a patented system so we are exclusive to this. But this is the game plan, guys. We're going to try to get, I'm going to see what the manufacturers bid. I've also got clientele lined up from Saluna to some Singaporean operations. And basically these batteries, they're a battery, right? So imagine you've got a battery and you put one light bulb on it, right? And like a flashlight, right? Imagine you got a flashlight, you turn it on, it'll keep that light going for a day, maybe 2 days. It depends. With the LED, the really efficient ones now, you could probably run 3 days, right? But if you put 2 LEDs on it, instead of 3 days, you're going to run for a day and a half. So what my plan is, what my strategy is, instead of going to you guys, like hands open saying, hey, please cough up more money, I can take these batteries that are for other clients and I can plug our operations and run them off. And the only trade-off to that is if we have a shortage of sunshine or we have, some cloudy days or some rain coming through or whatever, they're not going to have as much margin to continue running as they would if we didn't have operations running off. So what I'm trying to do is basically, put you guys as another LED in line with what they've already paid for or what they've already bought. And the thought is basically I'm going to over-engineer the system so much that like literally we'd have to have a week without any sunshine or any power. And at that time, I don't think any of my clients would reasonably expect, to not power down. Right? So if you take an entire year, can you run the math for me, Roop? If you take an entire year, 99% of an entire year, hold on, I'll do the math right here. 365 times. So that literally, if at a 99% uptime, that literally gives you like 4 days completely dead, nothing. All right. Most mining farms that are considered excellent run at 97, 98%. We'll say 98%. 365 times 0.98. So that literally gives us like 7 days, like an entire week completely offline. And that's running at 98% uptime, which is way above the industry standard. Honestly, with the grid, I was hoping to get 99% uptime, but because they keep like taking things offline and fixing things, and especially because the rain and all that stuff, I mean, we're getting more like 97%. That's like in line with what the grid is doing. So if we can beat the grid with our own private grid, I think we're doing great. I think we're doing gangbusters. We're doing better than I'd ever imagined solar could possibly do. And especially at the cost to build out the megawatt. So that's the game plan, guys, is at the end of this month, I want to move all of our operations off of the agricultural lands and start building out these solar operations. And I'm working diligently with Nabil. Nabil has been instrumental because of his connections in Daewoo. He already knows all the manufacturers, everybody who's got materials and supplies like ready to go, already in warehouses, things like that. And I'm in talks right now with 2 manufacturers. One is from Turkey and one is from China. And the strategy is you want to pit them against each other, right? We want to say, China can do it for this, and then Turkey's like, oh, no, we can do it for this. And that is the business plan that we're doing. I'm not at liberty to say the exact companies. There will come a time when I do a big press release, and hopefully it'll make world news, because I, am going to be having some global partners that I want to bring in this and get involved. But I'm not allowed to say those things until contracts get finalized and things get cemented, and then I can do press releases and public releases about that. But it's very exciting for me, guys, because I never thought this was even a possibility. I mean, I thought it was a possibility from the point of, solar energy is great, it's green. Everybody complains about crypto mining. It uses too much energy and it's, destroying our environment and yada, yada. Now we're going to have our own private lands, our own private grid, no government to tell us or regulate us or anything like that, tell us what to do. And nobody to complain saying, oh, we're putting carbon in the atmosphere and destroying the environment, things like that, because solar is about as clean can get. And if you look over the production, these solar panels, they're supposed to produce for somewhere in the neighborhood between 25 and 30 years. That's a lot of power over a vast amount of time. And that's assuming that we keep today's technology active for 20 years. The way it is going, I mean, it's going beyond Moore's law. It's more than doubling its efficiency and its cost every 16 months, which is what Moore's law is with CPUs. And, our next upgrade cycle or panel upgrade cycle could be as little as 3 years. So in 3 years, we'd be swapping out panels and we would be gaining another 20% efficiency. And instead of building out 20% more infrastructure, we just have to change the panels. That's all we have to do, right? We don't have to, get 20% more land or anything like that. To get 20% more power, we just change the panels. That's another reason why I'm going to be over-engineering these battery storage containers. So they're going to be able to hold a vast amount of energy, because I don't want to be upgrading them every 3 years. I want to be able to hold on to those for 5, 10, 15 years, and then just be able to change out the panels and be getting more and more and more power with each cycle. That's the game plan, guys. Does anybody have any questions? Wow. It's all crickets in here. I'm also exploring new battery technology. So you guys might be familiar with lithium-ion technology. It's the same battery storage that we use for our phones and our everyday devices. We know that these rare metals are a limited supply on Earth, and there's not an infinite supply of lithium. So I'm looking at rust-ion technologies. And this was actually brought to my attention by a client that I have. And let me see if I can find the link for that. So you guys have that. Let's see. Where is our group chat? I've got so many chats here on Telegram. That's why you gotta love Telegram. It's kind of a love-hate thing. But oh yeah, here we go. Yeah, so these are iron air batteries. And as you guys know, iron is the most common element in the entire universe. Basically, all elements decay into iron, whether it be hydrogens produced from the stars or radioactive material in nuclear decay. They all are kind of gravitating towards iron. And so these iron oxygen batteries are a really interesting idea. Basically, they use the process of electrolysis to rust the batteries, I believe, I need to read this again. Basically, what they do is they create rust and then they reverse the rust process, and they can do this like through millions and millions of cycles, much more than lithium-ion batteries can do. And so they're extremely cheap to manufacture, and they last much longer, and they create oxygen as a byproduct. That's their whole process of oxidating the anodes to create the energy. The fascinating stuff. So I'm going to definitely be looking into this. Here we go. 150 megawatt hour pilot project in Minnesota. They've got a whole gigawatt going on in New York. That's going on. So lots of really profound and exciting things are happening in the solar space that honestly, guys, I feel really bad that I haven't been keeping up to speed with this, because had I known all of these horizon technologies are coming out to reduce the cost and things like that, I could have seen this sooner. And again, I just thank my lucky stars that Nabil was knowledgeable about this, that he did the Dewa project, and he knew about it. He knew the ins and outs and all the details for me to kind of go and do my own research and get educated about this. And the cost has come down tremendously. And I don't even know what it's going to look like 3 years from now. I mean, it may be cheaper to double the power, like to do the upgrade, to double the power at the site, whatever site that we build. Now, what Nabil, because he's worked with the government, what he's trying to do is he's trying to get us some land as a government project, a land grant. So he's going to go to the government. He's going to say, look, we've got this green energy project, which, you know, a lot of governments, they sponsor green energy projects. They want it, you know, it's good publicity for them. We've got this green energy project. We need, you know, this many megawatts of power, and we need this much land to do it. Failing that, if the government says, we're not interested, or, you know, that's cool, come at us another day, whatever. Failing that, they have their own private lands that we can go ahead and use, that we can go ahead and start building out on. But his idea first is, you know, why not? If the government can give you the land for free, why not get it for free? You know, why pay for something unless you have to? So inshallah is something that they say, if God wills it, inshallah, if God wills it, we will get a land grant for this project, and we will be able to move forward very quickly with the existing manufacturers that are well established, that already have, you know, equipment and infrastructure here, ready to get the ground running. Our critical key component is the battery, right? Basically, as soon as the battery container system is installed on site, you know, obviously we're going to need solar panels plugging into it as fast as possible. But as soon as there's energy in that battery, there's nothing else to stop us from plugging in and running. And as I explained to Roop, even if we had just one solar panel, eventually it would charge up that battery. It might take 10 years if we didn't draw any energy from it. But, you know, our critical component is to get the battery on site. As soon as we have the battery on site, we can start building out infrastructure. I can move miners in. And then it's just a matter of, you know, plugging and chugging as many solar panels as we can install a day, right? You know, so if we can do 100 a day, we'll do 100 a day. If we can do 200 a day, we'll do 200 a day. But it's going to bring the power of everything. The power over the power will be in our power, right? Because one of the things that I hate desperately about this industry is just being beholden to grid suppliers. And even these green energy sites, you have to, you know, do curtailment, shut down and turn on when they want you to, and things like that. With our own private solar grid, we answer to no one, only ourselves. And as far as I know, no one in the industry has that ability. Maybe the flare gas site people do, but they have to spend $20 million on a turbine flare gas generator that only gives them 5 megawatts of power. And these things, you know, they're heavily mechanical systems, so they need constant maintenance, and they're very expensive to repair, and they're in extremely rural areas and things like that. And so nobody is moving this direction. And even if they are moving in solar, they don't have access to the sunshine that we have. So they're not going to have the oodles and oodles of power that we're going to have exposure to. Hey, Aaron, good to see you, buddy. Aaron, I think your mic is off, but if you want to chat. So I'm sure this is a lot for all of you guys to take in.
Hey, gents.
Hey, Aaron.
Oops, sorry.
Enjoying a day at the pool, it seems, right?
Right. Hey, we're camping. We're up at the pool. Kids are having a blast.
That's awesome, man.
Yeah.
That's awesome. I don't think I'm ever going to get a vacation, especially with what we've got coming down the pipeline. But
how's it going, guys?
Sounds good.
It's going good. You know, the idea that I have is, you know, I've already got 2 megawatts, actually 3 megawatts completely paid for and sold, and to just migrate all of my operations and all of my clients to this. You guys, because we're only pulling, I think total we're pulling about, it's less than half a megawatt. It's like 4.3 megawatts or something, 0.43 megawatts. So a little bit under half a megawatt. Basically, what I plan to do is just hook you guys up to these existing battery systems and siphon off of their battery system. I don't think, because we're going to make our margins so big, these batteries are going to be so vast and able to run operations for so long, I don't think it's ever going to get into a situation where it's going to drain the battery completely. And even if it does, it'll be a very extreme situation, like we've had a week of no sunshine or something along those lines. And I think the client, just, it's solar. It's intuitive. If the sun doesn't shine for a week, you're not getting the energy you need to operate. I don't think it's going to be any kind of problem. But that is the strategy moving forward for you guys.
Sounds good. Sounds good.
And so, yeah, so the good news is, to get Monopoly plugged back in and to get Roop up and running simultaneously. So I'm going to consolidate. I've got lots of, little farms I've got a couple using a megawatt here and there, but most of them are using about 500 kVA, which is about a half a megawatt. I'm going to try to consolidate everybody into one large operation, right? And then all of my newer clients, all of their running is hydro. So they need a very, very small footprint to run hydro. You can actually run hydro out of these containers now. You just need the cooling towers. And it's a much more efficient way. But all of my air-cooled operations, I'm going to consolidate into one building, one farm. And then that farm is going to be fed off of the excess of the batteries from these other projects. Because I think altogether, I'll have to do the math completely, but I think altogether it should be less than 4 megawatts that I need for my side projects. But it's okay for the megawatt farms because they know that they're going to pay more capex. I've already talked with them; they're on board. They're like, hey, we'll pay a little bit of capex and just give us a little bit higher of a power rate. But for you guys, I'm going to try to stay as true to the project as possible. Now, that brings me to my next bit of news, and I spoke with Roop about this. Once we get things rolling and get things moved over, I'm so excited about this project. I've decided, because I'm in control of everything from end to end, from the power grid to the miners and the machines. And as you guys know, I have really good operations for the miners, but what I can't control is municipalities and bureaucracy and governments and the agricultural departments and that kind of shenanigans. I can't control that. But if we have our own private land and our own private grid, I can control that from end to end. And that's when I will be deciding to make another monopoly project or another mining project. And I'm going to do this with Roop. We'll do it as a joint project, trying to bring both of our communities together. And I'm going to focus on doing hydro cooling technology. The air-cooled, we run them fine. We manage them just fine. The hydro just works so much better in the humidity conditions. It's not a temperature issue here. It's a humidity, and it gets super humid at night. And those cooling curtains, they cool it enough to where the miners run, but it's just not good. We've had to replace lots and lots of fans on the miners, and that's because the humidity is contaminating the fans. Not really, well, it also oxidizes the machines, right? If you put water on metal, what happens? You put water on metal and then you throw sand at it, with minerals and stuff, you're going to get oxidation. It's going to, eat away at the machines. And so moving forward, I think we need to do a hydro project because that's the most efficient gear on the planet right now. It's a much better technology for the environment because we can kind of get through those very, very humid times. And also, it's a much simpler, smaller footprint of a design. So when we have to think about air and airflow, we have to do, much bigger, larger cooling curtains and think about airflow and things like that. With a hydro, we just need the cooling tower. That's it. Boom. And then pump the hot water to the tower, pump the cool water back. So that's what I've got going on in my head. Does anybody have any questions or like to know anything or? Okay, Max says he's excited to do another project with us together. Let's do it. Yeah, let me get our initial private grid sorted, and it really shouldn't take that long because all the roadblocks are removed, right? We don't have to have a government or municipality other than the land grant, which I think that's a smart move. If you can get the land for free, you might as well, get that for free. If you can get the government backing you as a green project, that's even better. There's also a green visa, like if you're doing a green or solar project over here, you can get a 10-year visa. Like you don't have to renew or anything like that. Lots of advantages to trying to use it. We're going to try that first, but if we get pushback or not cooperation, or maybe even if it's going to take some time, I have clients that are ready to go, that have money paid. So we'll go on the lands that are available that Nabil and his brothers have. We'll go ahead and just we'll do a pilot project. We'll do pilot projects there until we can get the bigger land secured. But just wanted to keep you guys apprised of the situation, what's going on. So you had a question about rough guess on the timetable. Yeah, I told Roop, I said in as little as 6 weeks. Right now, the thing that is going to take the longest, or the unknown, is how fast I can get the batteries on a piece of land. Because everything's going to be powered from the batteries. The batteries, they'll have a battery and they'll have an inverter that creates three-phase. So we don't even need transformers, guys. We don't even need to, get like grid transformers or anything. We need to get a battery on site. We need to get the three-phase inverter that runs off the battery, and then we've got power. Like we don't need inspections. We don't need permits. We don't need none of that. Like we just bring the container on the site. So as fast as we can get a container on a site that has batteries, we can, start building out infrastructure and be plugging in. From that point on, we've got to then put solar panels that we've got to plug into the battery, right? But as I said, the manufacturers are already here. If you look at this site on Google Maps, it is freaking huge. And things made in China, they don't work perfectly. So that they brought an extra 10% or an extra 5% for the panels that break or the panels that just don't function up to muster. So they've got thousands and thousands of extra panels sitting in warehouses. So the supply of the infrastructure is not really a concern to me. What I do need to get a solid time on is how fast we can get a battery container put on land and connected up. The connections and building the site itself, like if it's an air-cooled site, that doesn't take very long, maybe a week and a half tops. I'll give myself 2 weeks. But the unknown right now is how fast we can get a battery on land. And as soon as I know that, I will let you guys know. Hopefully, they've already got an inventory of them in warehouses. Like I said, it's not like this has not been done in huge scale already. So it's not like we're experimenting or, it's our first rodeo. I would be very surprised if there is not a vast inventory of batteries and photovoltaic panels already here in the UAE. They're probably coming in with every shipment. With every shipment, they're probably stockpiling more and more. And I think Nabil, again, you guys have to forgive me. I know a lot about grid power systems. I have never even fathomed, I understand electricity, but I never even fathomed doing a solar farm or our own private grid from solar farm. So I've got a huge learning curve that I've got to catch up on. But everything that I'm seeing, like I've been trying to tear this apart for a week. I've been working day in and day out. Like, where's the fatal flaw? Where's the hiccup going to be? What's going to shut us down or make this not work? Yes. Well, the issue with the fines, like, if they give us a fine once every 6 months, I think we're okay. It's going to hurt, profitability for me and my bottom line. It wouldn't get us to a point to shut down. What's hurting us is that the municipality and now the power company, they don't want to do power upgrades for anybody. For Roop's project, which is the piece of land that's right next door to one that we're already operating on, I didn't want to do a big power upgrade. I didn't want to do 1 megawatt. I just wanted to do 200 kVA. It's not even a quarter of a megawatt. It's a modest amount. And the pushback and the resistance, and I've made calls. I've called GCs. I've called, top tier contractors. I've talked with landowners. Like, nobody, even legit farms, are struggling to get a power upgrade, anytime they put a request, it just gets basically ignored, and no phone calls get returned. It's not good for business. And the message that they're giving is pretty crystal clear. It's get the hell off our lands. Stop doing this on the lands. And there's no future in fighting that. You need to find another way. You need to find a better way, and this is it. This is it. I mean, you've got this solar farm here in Abu Dhabi, and you've got this massive, just it's at least 4 times bigger than what they have in Abu Dhabi. And lots of land all around it. And lots of land around it. So I think it's well worth our effort to try to get a government grant to get the land granted to us so we can do this project. Barring that, let's just get a 5 megawatt battery on one of the plots of land, and then we'll just start plugging in solar panels every day until it's making enough energy to equalize what it's spending. All right. Does anybody have any other questions or anything like that?
Yeah, Ethan, I got a quick question.
Sure.
So you're saying these panels, right? These panels, let's say you get a 200 watt panel. What kind of
Okay.
rating do a lot of these panels have?
First of all, the panels that we're looking at are 800 watt.
Oh, 800. Okay.
800 watts per panel. So again, this is how much the technology has changed there, and that's what blew my mind, right?
Yeah.
Because literally
Right.
2
'Cause I
years
always
ago,
heard of
3
like
years
200,
ago,
300
yeah,
watts.
2 to 300, that was state of the art, and that was expensive, right?
Right.
For a 2 to 300 watt panel, you're going to pay like $180, $250. That was
So what's this? Is this 800 watt panel like $10?
it's like $60 to $80 a panel.
That's
I
unreal.
know. It blew my mind. It blew my mind. Yeah,
All right, man. That's awesome.
It has changed so much that it's now beyond viable. But I wanted to go in a little bit more detail how to answer your question. So as we know, the sun rises and the sun sets, right? So these panels, they're rated at an average, right? So in the morning at dawn, these panels only produce at about 20%. But in the midday, when the sun is directly over the head, they produce at 150%. And then as the sun goes down and sets again, they go down to 20%. So this 800 watts, it is an average over the solar cycle of what the sun does over this panel. However, it's an average, I believe, that is standardized to like North America sunlight over a year. And as you know, the UAE has way more sunshine than North America does. So I think kind of an additional bonus, and again, I don't know these solar systems. I know the principles behind it. I can't say it with absolute certainty, but I'm expecting that the performance our panels will deliver over their formula that they use to rate them will be better.
Yeah.
Right? Because it makes sense that we have more
the
sunshine.
Yeah.
So it's kind of
Yeah,
like
I'm sure the UV spectrum in the UAE is a whole nother monster compared to the US.
Oh yeah. It's kind of like the EPA rating, right, between city and highway driving. Right? There's this whole standardized formula of like how they get to it, and if you get a car that meets that, that's great. But the way I drive, I never get to the EPA rating for city driving and highway driving. And so you kind of have to think of it like that. Results may vary based on the conditions, and I think our conditions are superior than the formula that they use to give that averaging of what their performance is. That's a great question, though.
Gotcha. No, appreciate it. Just wondering what the panels are around these days.
Yeah, I was shocked. 800 watts. Yeah, I mean, I'm totally in the same boat with you. Literally 2-3 years ago when I looked into it, 200, 240, that was state of the art. And, of course they, weren't cheap. because I've always wanted to have a solar powered house, guys. It's kind of been one of my dreams. You know, like when Tesla made the power wall, like I was designing my house around the power wall, and you know, um,
Yeah, I had some solar guys just in the spring talking about 250-watt panels to put on homes. I was like, first of all, I don't want anything made in China like on my roof, right? But
yeah.
like clearly it hasn't caught to the residential market yet, right? Like,
Well, you got to
yeah,
understand that these solar panel companies in the U.S. Well, I don't know exactly their business model, but clearly they buy in bulk, right?
yeah,
And
yep.
to buy in bulk, you have long, production cycles, right? So you may put an order. It's like ordering in chips for a computer. You put your order in, and then you have to wait 6 months in the queue before they build your order and then ship it to you. And so they're leveraging these vast quantities against it. But what's happened is the industry itself, like, so it used to be that there were only like four major suppliers. I think there was Panasonic, like they were Japanese basically. But now there are so many photovoltaic panel manufacturers out there, and the competition has become so fierce that it has driven down the price just to extremes. And so, even though these solar panel companies in the US, they put in their order 6 months ago, they got their bulk order, they may not have been able to leverage that because it's happened so fast and so recently. But obviously they're going to make profit too, right? It's kind of like when you buy gold, right? You buy the gold like dirt cheap, and then you wait for the price of it to go up, and then you sell it. But yeah, I mean, 230, like if you look on Alibaba, the panels that they have there are like 600, 800 watt panels. And yeah, it's just amazing. I mean, the battery's $30,000. A 1 megawatt battery is $30,000. That's like, I couldn't imagine that. Like, for me to buy a megawatt of grid power, like I have to do so many crazy things. I have to get a transformer, I have to get a permit and an earthing test, and just all these crazy things have to happen that cost so much money and take so much time, and there's so much like out of my hands and out of my control. But I can just buy a 1 megawatt battery right here off the good old interwebs. I got a like that. It's like waving a magic wand. I've got a megawatt of energy. Now, obviously, this is just a capacity. The energy is derived from the panels themselves. But with it being so cost effective, like I think I'm crazy not to do it. I don't think I'm crazy to do it. I think I'm crazy not to do it, because every project that we do, even if we do pilot projects, we're going to try to drive the cost down lower and lower and lower because the competition is so fierce. So if I can get the big guys, Saluna and some other clients that I have in the industry, and they don't want to buy, they don't want to build 1 megawatt. They want to build 100 megawatts, 300 megawatts, 500 megawatts. They want to build vast scale. I can drive the cost down even further. And it makes total sense because it's cheaper than what they can do to get off the grid. Anyway, I hope all of you guys are happy. I know it was unexpected, and I was, thinking, what should we do? And I've been working really, really hard behind the scenes. I'm the kind of person that I don't like to tell you there's a problem until I already have a solution or something viable that can happen, as a replacement or as an alternative. And so I feel like I've got a viable alternative. And I think you guys clearly understand that, our biggest hiccup in all of this is just how fast can we get a battery on a piece of land? Because everything else is ready. The 3-phase inverter is right there. We just need to connect the power wires to the 3-phase inverter, and then run those power wires to a main panel. And then from that panel, we need to distribute out to the power distribution units and plug in the miners, and that's it. And fortunately, with Roop's project, I ordered more PDUs, more power distribution units than I actually needed, because I made a custom design that has a network built in with the power distribution unit. So I don't have to build two separate systems. I can just install the power distribution unit and the network's there ready to go. I can just pigtail them together and they're ready to go. I don't have to buy these big switches and do punch panels and things like that. I can just pigtail off of them and they're good to go. So yeah, I'm really excited about this. Really excited to get things moving fast, efficiently, and also, I'm not gonna lie, especially after the rains and the roads were destroyed, having to go to all these different sites and like having to drive crazy ways, and like I like going off-roading. I'm not gonna lie about that, but especially with Faisal driving the company truck through water that was like above the driver's window, and because he just doesn't know about floods, and almost hydrolocking a brand new truck that I bought for the company. It'll be nice to have just one consolidated place, and I don't have to just like jump from all these places, and especially when a storm runs through, like I have to communicate with like 10 different guys, like, are there any leaks? What's going on? if you see this, shut down. I don't have to do all that anymore. I can just have one centralized operation. And it might make some more hairs on my head grow back, guys, or at least free me up to have a freaking vacation, which I think if all goes according to plan, I will definitely deserve a vacation.
Yeah, really excited about this one.
Hair's overrated.
What did you say, Aaron?
I said hair's overrated.
Yes, it is. But the beard, nobody recognizes me if I shave the beard.
Yeah.
All right, guys. So I hope you guys have a wonderful Friday. I know things went much longer than expected. I'm going to sign off here as well. And I will keep you guys up to date and informed. As soon as I know something, I will share it with all of you guys. And yeah, stay tuned. The best is yet to come.
Yeah. See you
All right,
guys.
see you guys.